The number one mental and emotional skill
Mm.
it's called many different things in many different disciplines. It's called witness consciousness in yoga. It's called objective awareness, maybe in sports psychology. It's called the observer effect in quantum physics.
Today I'm with Ryan Sawyer. I'm really pumped for this one because he is a mindset coach working down in Spokane and he's working with some high-level athletes, and I'm really excited just to get him on here because I've seen some of the stuff he's been doing and it's awesome. And I'm really excited to hear what he's got to say and just hear his story and what he's doing down there. So, yeah, Ryan, if you want to maybe just say a bit about yourself and what you're doing, and we'll jump into this.
Yeah, awesome. No, thank you for having me on. Appreciate it. It's excited to be here and you just get a chance to connect with, like-minded people. Always appreciate it. So, yeah, man, a little bit of background. I was a former collegiate football coach. I coached college football for 12 years.
Cool.
And my last 8 years of that career was at Eastern Washington University. That's kind of what brought me to this Spokane area that I ended up staying. And in this
Yeah.
area, I met my wife. And so when I left coaching in 2015, part of the story that fits your podcast and what has led me now back to doing mindset work, or what I call mental
Yeah.
strength coaching, is my own personal journey.
Mm.
And so when I left in 2015, it was legitimately, to not sugarcoat it, to save my own life.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was battling with suicidal depression, panic
Mm.
attacks, the whole nine yards. And now I'm able to look back on it and realize, hey, this whole thing started when I was about 13 years old.
Wow.
And it ebbed and flowed. It came and it went. I avoided it, resisted it, denied it for multiple years. Everything from, just really pursuing performance and achievement to the whole nine yards, right? Yeah, suppressing it with every way, shape, and form that you can
Hmm.
imagine. And
The
and so it
manly
came
way.
to a head. What's that?
The manly way.
Yeah, man, anyway, yeah, don't feel, man. Don't
That's
feel.
right.
That's the F word, feelings, right?
Yeah.
And so it all came to a head. I have two little kids at home
Mm.
at the time, 2.5 and 1. They were 17 months apart. Marriage was struggling, and so I left to legitimately just figure it out. And
Mm.
so for the next about 5 years, I went on the relentless journey. I started a business that allowed me to study, to train, to travel, and it kind of gave me some flexibility and freedom. And I had enough resources to be able just to explore. So I went bonkers on personal development. And
Yeah.
before that time, it was like, work on yourself, grow. What are you talking about? Win football
Yeah.
games. That's all I care about, right? And and so, long story short, and I'll dive into it more if you want me to, but I did everything from training with former Navy SEALs, to hiring neuroscience specialists, to finding experts in memory and perception. I mean, yoga certifications, breathwork certifications, you know, qigong. I mean, you name it, it's out there. I explored it, and I didn't just explore it like reading a book. I became a practitioner of it. I went and kicked down the doors of the best in the world who taught it.
Mm.
I immersed myself in it. From Mark Divine with Unbeatable Mind and Seal Fit to and on it goes. The story goes on. So I ended up, because I'm in these circles now, training with people and experiencing things, I ended up just kind of naturally having people, hey, would you work with me? And I ended up writing a book. When COVID hit, my wife lost her job, and my company at the time was deemed non-essential. So it got shut down. So we went from two incomes to zero. And it was kind of like,
Wow.
oh, out in my driveway going, what do I do? Right. And
Yeah.
I'm like, there's an opportunity in everything. I
Yeah.
was really working on my mindset at the time. I'm like, good, let's go. So I sat down in my basement for the next 6 weeks and I wrote a book, put that
Wow.
out, and that naturally called Choice Point and it's actually the one there behind me there.
Yeah.
And I sort of had people start asking, hey, would you coach me? Would you work with me? Would you come speak to my team? Would you this? Would you that? And I was like, sure. I had no desire to return to coaching. I was an entrepreneur at this point, and I'm just making money and working on myself and being a family man.
Hmm.
And then eventually it just kind of called me back into it. I ended up writing a coaching program because I wanted to document and I wanted to force myself to like put it all together and connect all the
Yeah.
dots. More for in case I wasn't here, I wanted my kids to have what I found, right? From an
I love
emotional
that. Yeah.
perspective. Like, I'm going to put this on paper. I'm going to record it.
A
I'm going
roadmap.
to write this thing out, point by point. So like if something happened to me, they have what I found, like as almost like a
Hmm.
legacy type thing, right? So that turned into, we're building a coaching team now, and now I've returned in the last couple of years, I've returned to start working with athletes again, and I'm having a freaking blast. Taking
Hmm.
all the information that I have accumulated and then tailoring it back towards youth and athletes, mainly because when I was 16, 17 years old, 18, 20, 22 years old, looking for answers,
Hmm.
nobody had answers. And
Yeah.
they'd say some nice things and some things that would work for 5 minutes or 15 minutes or 2 or 3 days, but nothing that actually created a shift in my
Hmm.
overall well-being, in my state, or in the paradigm that which I was living.
Hmm.
And so I was like, no, I wanted to come back. I wanted to give back. I wanted to do this. And so that's kind of what led me back to this place. And I've come full circle now working with Eastern football again in
Hmm.
the mental strength realm. And
Yep.
so it's been a really interesting ride.
Yeah, that's that's thank you. That first of all for sharing. That's a lot. And there's so much there we can unpack and dive into, but you talked about that paradigm shift.
Hmm.
When I hear that, I think of a few things. First thing comes to mind is Tony Robbins talks about your master system, how you make decisions, your beliefs, your values. Is that the path you dove down to help make these lasting changes for yourself and people you're helping?
The paradigm shift, the terminology of that, if I'm understanding your question perfectly, didn't really come from something I was seeking.
Mm,
It came from, I mean, I first set out to understand how to have answers
mm,
if my son or daughter was in the same position I was in.
yeah.
I didn't believe that I could untangle the mess inside of me.
Mm,
I thought I was a lost cause.
mhm,
And so I was like, hey, I can live with this state of suffering.
yeah.
I'll see how long and I had this belief at that point in time 10 years ago that sooner or later it's going to win, but I'm going to fight as long as I can
Mm,
to try to find some answers and understand it so I can have some answers. Now, the paradigm shifting came from when I wrote this program that I now
mhm,
call integrated mindset, which is kind of the main program, and then there's other smaller things that stem off of that I do with athletes and corporations and different things. When I wrote that program, again, it was for no other reason than just to like put all of my experiences down on a piece of paper and have it make sense. Then
yeah.
I hired a neuroscience specialist for 2 years
Okay.
to go through my program line by line and help me make sense of it when it
Mm,
came to neuroscience, neurophysiology, neuropsychology, and make sure that what I was, if I was going to teach it to somebody else, it wasn't just my subjective experience. There was
mm.
objective, actual proof that
Some
this would
hard
work,
science.
right? Yeah, hard science behind it, which has led us to doing brain mapping now and all kinds of really cool things. They actually can
Wild.
see the changes in people's brains when they go through our program. I mean,
That's
ADHD levels
cool.
change,
Yeah.
depression levels, anxiety levels change. You can actually see the objective data in the brain change, brainwave activity change. And so this is what she basically brought to me and saying, "Oh, you've created this kind of if you boil it all the way down, this two-step process which I broke into 5 week sections that is actually the science of paradigm shifting." And I'm
Hmm.
like, I did? No kidding. No, I had no idea. Right. So that component is the idea of a paradigm is basically the way I explain it to people. It's like, your mind is a projector screen, right?
Hmm.
You are projecting what you based upon the filters and the perception of your culture, your biasy, your cultural biasy, your conditioning, all these
Hmm.
things, what you expect to see, what you've
Your
been conditioned,
history. Yeah.
right? And even you could we can unpack this in a level of like placebo and all kinds of different things, right? So this projector screen, well, if I can begin to understand how to actually change the screen I'm looking at, like a TV,
Hmm.
I can eventually at some point, there'll be two TVs that I'll
Hmm.
be looking at. There'll be the old paradigm, which is more fortified. There'll be the new paradigm, which seems unknown and unfamiliar and almost kind of seems like a threat because it's new and different.
Just changes
And
stuff. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
and then to go through that process of eventually fortifying the new paradigm.
Yeah.
And the old TV turns off, and now you're watching a new TV, which becomes your reality. And
Yeah.
as you reshape your perception, as you heal emotionally, as you
Mm.
learn to show yourself to take radical responsibility, to show yourself compassion, to be open and curious, to be more curious about what you don't know than what you think you do know, to ask powerful questions. We take people through all of these progressive things through what we call the six C's. And the six C's, basically, there's a threshold that cross where people's paradigms begin to shift. So it wasn't like I set out to like, oh, I'm going to shift my paradigm.
Yeah.
It was looking for answers,
Yeah.
and then I that was the outcome
Mm.
of a relentless explorative journey. Yeah.
It really makes a lot of sense because I've seen this time and time again in a lot of people's creativity process, especially when you're dealing with anxiety, when you're dealing with just any sort of stress, is that when you get outside of yourself and you make it about somebody else, you have these moments of genius come through. And so it's interesting that it was not even for you about your kids. And then it was like, oh, boom, wow, here's this amazing thing that I've created. And it wasn't even for me, but during the process, I actually went through this. So it's almost like you're tricking that that old paradigm. Be like, no, 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 don't worry, you're still here. It's all good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
You actually bring up a very deep point. What I found was, and it gets talked about, but it doesn't get the attention that it deserves. The number one mental and emotional skill
Mm,
it's called many different things in many different disciplines. It's called witness consciousness in yoga. It's called objective awareness, maybe in sports psychology. It's called the observer effect in quantum physics.
mm,
In biblical scripture, it's called everything from to be suspended. In logotherapy, they call it to be detached.
mhm.
This ability to observe from an objective view, right? To
Yeah,
like create the space between whatever you're experiencing, your thoughts, your emotions, your body, what we think is this shell of ourselves, Ryan Sawyer. I am not this thing. I'm just observing it, right? So
mhm.
I love that you bring this up because there is an, I can go forever on the science behind being able to objectify the experience, which is exactly what I was able to do as I was going through those steps of kind of being like, oh, I'm going through what we call the cycle of transformation. There's this void and it feels unfamiliar and unknown. And that's my brain's going to process that as a threat. And so I have
Mhm.
to learn how to go through that unknown, unfamiliar state. And you get
Yeah.
to the middle of the river of change and you decide, well, I'm in the middle of the river, so I might as well keep swimming to the other side. Why turn back to the old state, right?
Yep.
And so that's the different elements of transformation and but that ability to I've never thought of it that way, but it's interesting because the other piece that you brought up there that makes me think of something that we teach is one of the number one coping strategies that we teach. And there's three basic coping strategies that we're all using at any point in time is how well we use them and to what range and repertoire we're able to use them. But one of them is taking our eyes off of ourselves.
Yeah.
Take your eyes off ourselves, and that's can place them on something pleasurable. That could
Hmm.
be sunset, that could be a flower, that could be
Yeah.
God, that could be a higher power, that could be your relationship with God or whatever your belief structure is. That could be others. And so like when I work with teams, I'm legitimately probably at least 20 or 30% of the work that I do with teams is getting them to take their eyes off themselves and focus on their teammates.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? I think it was Jordan Peterson talks about that. It's just how to overcome anxiety. And when you stop focusing on yourself, you focus on other people. It's like massive changes happen.
Yep. Yep. And
Which I absolutely love.
I would just even say, just take your eyes off of your life,
Yeah.
right? Legitimately,
Mm.
just stop it.
Yeah.
Stop. Get out of your, I tell people to get out of this. It was, can you at least just set down the story long enough to objectify it?
Yeah. You
Right.
know, and I love that. And it makes me think of my own process, my own journey and doing my own work. And when I first started, I think that was that big, maybe that's first step in that paradigm shift when I went through, did somatic therapy and had a huge experience where we talked for like 2 minutes and I just sat there. And I've told this story before, but going in, I'm like, I know I need to change. Things aren't good at home with my current wife or my wife at the time, family, whatever. I was like stressed up to here. And I remember just sitting there for an hour, just hand underneath my kidney, hand underneath my, yeah, her hands underneath my kidney is what it was. And I just bawled for like an hour,
Hmm.
like so much. So we talked. So that's why I laugh about like holding it in before we are like, oh yeah, be a man, like stuff it down. I was like, it was probably a couple decades worth of emotions just coming out
Hmm.
heavy. And so what I noticed so after is we talked about, or you mentioned being that objective observer. What I noticed after about the things that were trigger points, we'll call them for me, or things that stress me out, or things that would cause fights. I remember distinctively taking that approach when I finally had deregulated my body and deregulated my nervous system, and to go, okay, I'm going to take that approach a step back, and I went, oh yeah, it's yeah, I did this, but like I'm not an evil person. Yeah, I messed you up here, but I'm not the devil.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and because I don't know if you're like me, but that was always my mentality. It was like, oh, it's me. I'll just take it on. I'll just take it on. I'll just take it on. I'll, whip myself over this because I'm a bad person. I messed up and I did this. And when in reality, when you take that step back, you're like, no, you know what? This is a relationship and this is a thing. Like, it's more than just me doing this. I can't be the only person here. So I know exactly that moment you're talking about. And when you take that approach, it's almost like you feel this weight go, and you're like, oh man. And I would say it's kind of like wearing the world. It's like kind of like wearing shit colored glasses, right? And you're like, oh, the world's shitty, it sucks. But then you take them off, you're like, oh,
Oh, it's, I
it's
didn't even
actually
know.
pretty okay.
Yeah. 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 No, it's it's really quite simple. That's
hmm
when we realize that thoughts and emotions are just stress.
hmm
And when you take a step back from them and then you learn how
hmm
just to observe them without being attached or identified, labeling
hmm
good, bad, like legitimately,
Yeah.
the number
Yep.
one component is, and they say this for about mindfulness, non-judgmental awareness.
hmm
Can you actually release the the whole entire concept of judging?
Yeah.
Just observe and
Yeah.
just experience what you're experiencing to where then now you're able to release the pressure,
Yeah.
release, right? When you begin to understand that you're the one keeping it in there, you're
Yeah.
the one making yourself a pressure cooker, right?
Yep.
So you have to release the valve, and to release the valve, the number one skill is objective awareness, the witness
hmm
consciousness piece. And but the problem is people are like, oh no, yeah, I'm not saying to think about your thinking. That's
hmm
metacognition. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about to legitimately sit behind it. And
hmm
that's a practice. That's a
Yeah.
mindfulness practice that has to, in my opinion, people say that, meditate, what if you don't practice it when you're sitting still and things are calm and there's nothing happening around you, you don't stand a chance in hell of being able to do it when bullets are flying, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to practice it. And I teach this to high level performers now. Like you have to practice things, you have to practice being calm when things are
hmm
calm.
hmm
And then you can start to learn how to be calm when things are rugged.
Yeah.
And then you can learn how to be calm when things are high stake,
Yeah.
right? But it's not, we're not going to be able just to have a conversation about, oh yeah, you just got to observe it. No, because you're going to get wrapped right back up in it. You're going to
Yeah.
start thinking about your thinking. Now you're thinking about your thinking. You're starting to judge it. And that's a good thought. And that's a bad thought.
Mm.
All of that judgment interferes with life. Judgment,
Totally.
judgment interferes with performance, right? And it actually interferes with the ability to learn. And it interferes with
Yep.
the natural learning process of a human. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it makes you think of Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this lots too, of how it becomes a cycle, right?
Mm.
So it's like when you think of, everybody has an ex. And normally, if you think about your ex, a lot of people will get fired up and angry. Well, that that's a cycle, it's a pattern.
Hmm.
So if you don't step back, well, what's going to happen? So you're fighting a bit of biology too there, I think, because okay, well, I'm thinking about my ex, and then I get fired up, and then my starts racing, and I get a little release of cortisol, and then I get a rush, that rush of energy, and then I start talking about it, and boom, 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 and then I get excited because I got that energy, and then it kind of does this loop, and you keep doing it. And so to add to that, yeah, you're fighting a bit of that as well as that patterning of like normally this is what you do, but if you want change, you must change.
Well, it's again, you're hitting on a very profound point. All of life is a pattern.
Yeah.
All of life. It's either a
Hmm.
mental pattern, an
Hmm.
emotional pattern, a physical pattern, and sometimes it's all three in one.
Hmm.
So when you're able to identify one of these different patterns,
Yep.
right? Something as simple as when I walk by the kitchen, I think about getting a piece of chocolate. Pattern.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When I see a red car, it reminds me of my ex.
Yeah.
Pattern,
Yeah.
right? When I get a phone call or an email about a disgruntled customer within my company, whatever, pattern.
Hmm.
It's all a pattern, and it's all based upon how you respond to stress, some
Hmm.
form of a stress response.
Hmm.
So, legitimately, one of the number one mechanisms of change and transformation and learning how to create your own internal well-being,
Hmm.
emotional well-being, mental and emotional well-being is learn how to interrupt patterns.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
observe, first of all, what Dr. Joe would say, once you recognize the pattern, you are no longer the pattern.
Hmm.
You're the one observing the pattern.
Yeah.
That's what you talk about, right? So
Yep.
that's the observer effect. Oh, there's this pattern. Well, good. You now know you're aware of it. Good. Are you gonna now? What is the
You wouldn't want to.
strategy, the
Yep.
tactic to interdict it, to
Yep.
interrupt it? Are you taking your eyes to something? Are you, learning to kind of just observe it? Are you learning to actually stop it by, doing some breath work or an exercise or going for a brisk walk? Or what are you doing to interrupt the pattern?
Hmm.
Because here's the thing, if you let it run,
Yep.
it becomes more fortified. It's like you just tighten the knot. You just
Yep.
made that knot tighter, and now it's gonna be harder to untangle later. So that's why I love teaching this stuff to a 16, 17-year-old
Yeah.
athlete because now they're going into
Game
their life.
changer.
Yeah, they have that tool and that awareness to be able to like, oh, that's just a pattern. I'm going to interrupt it.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think of for patterns, I always think of your awareness like a sword to cut through those patterns you want to change. So if you bring awareness to it, just that alone, I would say is a huge advantage because now you're not because we're not aware of what we're not aware of, right? And I'm sure your wife probably said this, and might have said this sometimes, like, "Hey, do you know you do this?" And I'm like, "Huh?" Like, well, every time I scratch my forehead, I scratch like this. I do, and she's like, "Yeah, you do," and she thinks it's cute and blah blah. I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even know I did it." Pattern. Now I'm aware of it. I'm like, "Oh, do I want to do it? Do I not?" It's a small little thing and it's silly, but the point there is that the awareness is key. When you bring that awareness, it's like, oh, there's your first step, I would say. Bring the awareness there, and then it's what do you want to do next? Because even if you just bring some awareness and pause, well, now that stops from becoming a reactive response,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah,
that's a
you gotta create
yeah,
that space. You gotta create that space. Yeah, man.
absolutely. So I wanted to touch on because you talked about it a little bit, because I know for some people, change can be really tough, and I have people in my life that I care about deeply, but I know there's some stuff going on there. And I see this lots where some people are like, yeah, they want to change, they're willing. And other people, it's just like anything you say, they're like, nope. Or they just, yeah, 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 and then they don't want to. What are some, if there's some low-hanging fruit, because I always like low-hanging fruit, what's like the easiest first step for somebody that is like starting that process of change?
Mm.
And maybe something that's just a little nudge to get them over that little hump to, they're halfway there. Hey, you've thought about it, we've talked about it, let's get you in the water a little bit. What's a little strategy to help somebody kind of take that first
Talk
step?
about the lowest hanging fruit possible. And
Mm,
you mentioned Dr. Joe.
mm,
So I'm going to go down some strategies that he talks about as low hanging fruit. It is first you have to people want change, but they haven't practiced being the version of them that can actually create change.
yeah,
Right.
that's a good
And,
point.
and I'd say the same thing for somebody who wants some big goal.
Hmm.
I just had this conversation with the mastermind group that we're setting these big worthy challenges, these big worthy goals for the next quarter. And I'm like, here's the thing about this goal is that we're not the version of ourselves
Yes.
right now or yet that's going to obtain that goal. Like we have to
Yes.
grow, right? And now, so people go set out to build a business, to save their marriage, to transform themselves, to lose 20 pounds, to whatever they're doing, right? But yet they don't actually spend the time to construct the version of themselves that's
Mhm.
going to be able to actually execute that goal,
Yeah.
right? That's going to be able to
Yeah.
walk that path. And so, what the lowest hanging fruit possible is, again, coming back to just the theme of this conversation is when it comes to patterns, I have to
Mhm.
be somebody who becomes more aware,
Yeah.
right? So, let's you do some super simple practices that begins to wake me up.
Yeah.
Because let's just assume that we're asleep.
Yeah. That's a good
And,
analogy.
and
Yep.
when I work with like my coaching team, I tell them, hey, you have to assume when you wake up tomorrow that you're asleep, that you're in a
Mhm.
program that's like you're in the matrix.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You have to unplug
Great
yourself from
analogy.
the matrix. What are you going to do to make sure you wake yourself up?
Yeah.
It's something I do every single day. And some days are different. Some days it's cold therapy. Some days it's a hard workout. Some days it's a long meditation. Some days maybe I don't wake up and I don't know it. I don't know. But I'm attempting to wake up.
Hmm.
Right? So, lowest hanging fruit, back to your question, drive a different way to work.
Yeah. My wife says that all the time. Do something different.
Do something different. Brush your
Yeah.
teeth with
Yeah.
the opposite hand.
Yep. Right.
Right? Just do something different out of your normal pattern.
Yeah.
Interrupt the normal pattern that you can see is something that you do every day.
Yeah.
I guarantee when you take a shower, you grab the bar of soap and you start in the same place every
Yes, sir.
single time to start
Yes,
sudsing.
sir.
Mine's my left arm. Boop, every time,
Left
right? Left
armpit.
arm,
Yeah.
then right arm, right? And then right
True.
leg, then left leg. Like, hey, no, grab that bar of soap and start with your right foot.
Yeah.
Like, generally, like it sounds so stupid and it sounds so simple. But if you can't wake up to yourself,
Hmm.
to recognize that your whole entire life is a series of patterns. And it's good that it
Yeah.
is because your brain is a pattern making machine, and that's how it conserves energy.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
same mechanism of your brain trying to conserve energy,
Hmm.
right, is the same reason why you can't change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're in
It's
the
a good point.
story of not wanting to be uncomfortable, and your brain legitimately tricks, it rationalizes and it
Hmm.
justifies its way to stay in the same pattern because whether or not that pattern is serving you or not, it conserves
Predictable.
energy to run that pattern.
Yeah.
Mental, emotional, physical pattern, whatever it is, your brain doesn't give a shit about your goals.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Yeah.
give a shit, right?
Yeah.
So I would
Totally.
say just take the lowest, like start doing something. If you talk about the lowest hanging fruit, that's the lowest I could think of. Uh, you
I like
know,
that.
I mean, yeah, there's a million other things, but um, yeah, that's where I would start.
I love that. And I always add to it with people that I help and coach and stuff. And I always say, try to break it down and who do you like? Who's somebody you admire in that field? So, for example, I coach football. Who's your favorite player? What would he do? Okay. Would he get up early? Yeah. Would he work out every day? Oh, yeah. Okay. Start being like him. Start
Mhm.
there. And then it's like a real easy, because I'm a visual person. So it's like, well, picture instead of it being, and it maybe ties into what we talked about earlier about being objective observer. It's not you. It's like, no, no, just pretend to be that person over there. Not you doing it. Just pretend to be that guy. And I find sometimes it can help because, again, it's somebody they admire, they respect. And most of those things that, hey, do you want to be like this business guy or whoever? You can find that information. It's pretty easy to find. There's probably tons of videos on it, right? And I want to touch on one more thing. I like what you said about your goals. You made a really good point is that your brain doesn't care about your goals. And
Mhm.
it's wild how powerful that is. And I've been diving into a lot of like subconscious training, a couple books. I'm just trying to remember them off the top of my head, but they're not coming to my brain. But either way, they talk about that lots is how your conscious mind will chase it'll chase those desires, but it's 5%. It's 5% of your overall power. Whereas your subconscious mind is 95%. It's all those patterns,
Mhm.
right? It's all those patterns that you just talked about. And so I would say to make lasting change, like you got to get that into your subconscious. You got to get that so it's a part of the patterns,
Mhm.
right? So yeah, if you want to change these goals, it's like yes, the awareness totally 100%. And I always, for myself at least, I'm like, hey, I got to get this so that way it's so deep inside me that it's a pattern to do this. That it's I'm not pursuing it. My body knows to pursue that,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
That subtle difference there.
Yeah. So how do you, so the question becomes, how do I get my body to know to pursue the thing? What you're talking about is subconscious programming,
Yep.
right? Paradigm shifting
Hmm.
is the same thing that we started with, the same thing that we say, that it's not okay to do when we're young is to feel as a
Hmm.
man, right?
Mm.
Is our superpower.
Yeah.
Feeling is our superpower. So
I
if you want
100% agree.
how
Yep.
to how to program your subconscious mind, you have to teach yourself how to feel.
That's a great point.
That legitimately,
Yeah.
and this gets lost for people. When I was first
Yeah.
getting the science behind how to actually get to change so the brain is an experiential organ.
Hmm.
Okay, it's experience, and the brain's wiring becomes what we are experiencing as our personality, and then
Yep.
that's how we experience our personal reality or our paradigm, right?
Yep.
And the neurological hardware of the brain doesn't change unless there is basically two clear things,
Mm.
a very clear intention or image, like
Yep.
you said, you're very visual,
Hmm.
and an elevated emotion that's
Yeah.
been hooked up to that. And this is again Dr. Joe Dispenza. I love Dr. Joe.
It's great.
And,
Yeah.
and so that's why, like when you're talking about who do you admire, I have people actually develop an alter ego.
Oh, I like that.
So we
Yeah.
actually develop, and now how do they think? What are their
Mm.
habits? I mean, I have them go through a whole entire series, and the book Alter Ego Effect, Todd Herman is a fantastic book if you ever want to explore truly the power of alter egos. But what you're doing, just so you understand the
Mm.
science behind it, you're giving humans work. They learn through modeling. They learn through images. Like that's how the
Hmm.
brain and the mind actually learns how to walk,
Hmm.
how did you know what to do with this with a golf club the first time you picked up a golf club? You saw somebody else swing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've never seen someone swing a golf club. You'd grab this racket and be like, what the hell do I do with this thing? Right?
Yeah.
And so it works through images, right? This is why
Yes.
modeling as parents, this is why modeling as leaders
Mm.
is so freaking important. This is why our motto as a team of coaches is don't tell them, show them. Like this is
Yeah.
why I to this day continue to do things that challenge me, and I will be willing to do anything hard that my clients are doing.
Mm.
Just a week ago, when I did my first session with Eastern football, I came in, I taught them how to use their mind in a very simple way, how to create a picture and take action. And we went
Hmm.
out and did a 35-minute plank hold. We did a plank hold for 35 minutes by learning how to
Wow.
connect to our breath, be present, let go of judgment, win in our mind, take action. And we just did
Ooh.
it over and 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 over again until, you do it one breath at a time. 35 minutes later, you're like, holy crap, I can't believe I did that. Right?
Yeah, that's insane. And you know what? Like, just for clarity, I mean, these are high level athletes, but 35-minute plank is a lot. Like
It's a
I've been
long
working
time.
out since I was 12 and I'm 35. Like that's a long time.
It's a
And
long time to be
I'm
a
not
pro.
at these high level athletes guys, but still like
Oh,
that's insane.
there was guys that had bloody knuckles and the whole 9 yards, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it's a real live, intense scenario.
I love that. That's cool.
But we're learning how to train the mind. We're learning how to overcome the natural tendency of the mind to limit us. We're learning how to use a clear
Yes.
picture and an
Yes.
elevated emotion to get the brain to do something it doesn't want to do.
Yeah.
Learn how to override the
Mm.
natural tendency of your brain to limit you.
Yep.
So you
Because
create a picture. Yeah.
yeah, sorry, go ahead, keep going.
Oh, and so you create a picture in your mind. You get connected to the emotion behind that
Yeah.
picture. So
Yeah.
people, oh, you gotta know your why and all these things. Yeah, sure, know your why. And that can help you overcome anyhow. But more importantly, teach your body how to feel. And,
Yeah.
and I started to tell this story, but I got derailed a little bit. I get excited when I talk about this stuff. So when
I
I
like it.
first started understanding the science behind feelings and
Mm.
emotions, I started to go, okay, well, what does gratitude feel like? And I started realizing, like, shit, I don't think I've felt gratitude a day in my life. I don't
Mm.
know what it feels like. I'm trying to write gratitude. I am so grateful for, and nothing is. And I'm realizing like this is pointless. I'm wasting my
Hmm.
time. People say affirmations don't work. You're right if you
Mm.
don't try to feel them.
Yeah.
You have to actually engage with and not even the feelings of like pride. I'm talking about the sensations.
Yes.
The fact that you have a warming sensation in your heart or a
Yeah.
tingle sensation go up your spine or the urge to smile and these
Mm.
components, you want to talk about paradigm shifting. I can go all the way down the rabbit hole of saying you have to hook up your inner experience, your mechanical output, your breath, your posture, your eye gaze, what are your ears doing, face doing, all these things.
Yeah.
You start to hook that up, you actually begin to prime your neurological hardware to have what's called attention probability, where you
Mm.
begin to remove choice. Let's say, for
Yeah.
example, you have a desire to write a book. I do this with every single thing, every single one of my goals. I legitimately spend the time to orchestrate this to prime my brain and my body to where it removes the even choice of me whether or not I'm going to do it. Once I've decided I'm going to do something, I don't
Hmm.
have to even decide again
Yeah.
because I know how to prime my neurological hardware to legitimately just take relentless action towards it.
Mm.
It doesn't even take effort. It's because I do the work to like prime my brain and my body to go get the thing. So, for example, I'm going to write a book,
Hmm.
right? Once I have decided I'm going to write a book, I spend time holding that book in my hand. I spend time
Mm.
seeing what is it? What do I see? What do I feel? What do I hear? What's the social proof? What's the impact of me writing this book?
Hmm.
Who have I
Hmm.
now become in that process? And I spend enough time journaling it until I feel the internal paradigm shift of
Hmm.
believing that that book is done.
Yeah.
And then I
Yes.
go, and then I go write the book.
I love what you said is believing that it's done. And I
And
think that's the hugest mistake. And I'm going to support your point there even more is that the feeling, because I think of, part of, again, we talk about a part of growing up as men. It's like you don't feel, you don't cry, you don't this, and you nailed it on the head. It's our superpower. The key is to be able to harness it. It's
Mhm.
not just like feeling it and like and being like a crying mess and like nothing happens or like raging out on things and like not doing anything or whatever. It's like no, feel it, use it. People have done some, I think through history, people have done some crazy things for love,
Oh yeah.
for true passionate love. People have done some crazy things because they hated somebody. People have done some crazy things because they wanted to prove to everybody that they were better. Michael Jordan's a great example. Statistically, he doesn't make sense. But then you look at who he was and you're like, oh, he just had this innate desire, this deep desire to want to win at everything.
Mhm.
And he wanted to feel that feeling. So I love that you said that. And that's something I've been practicing. I think it's made a huge impact on my life. And I talk about all the time here is that meditating. But I say meditating, but I always add a huge component of visualization,
Mhm.
right? Watching those things because funny enough, actually, I was exposed to it in high school with my coach. And we did it, not to go down the rabbit hole here, but I think it just kind of ties into it because I played linebacker. I jammed both my thumbs senior year. I couldn't catch a football to save my life. Everybody I played with always make fun of me because I couldn't catch a football to save my life. But just that, it was right before we played our cross rival team, opponents there. And I remember we sat down to visualize. We did this like relaxing thing and we just visualized what we wanted. We just kept visualizing it, picturing it, picturing it, picturing it. And sure as shit, the next Friday night we're playing them and I get a pick. I couldn't catch a football the day before, but I visualized it and I pictured it for 20, 30 minutes. And when I was walking home, I pictured it all the way home. Caught a football and ran in for a winning touchdown. But I couldn't catch a ball to save my life, like, the day
24
before.
hours earlier. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny. And so it was really a great lesson because I'm like, man, wow, that was a cool little experience. Like, how did that happen? But you hit it there. Is like I didn't just think about it and just see it like, oh, it's kind of cool. I was like, no, no, I felt it. I felt how
Yeah.
good it would feel, and I do, and it's something I practice now in my own life. And I always encourage anybody, and do it with my athletes as well, is like feel the feeling. And so a really good way I would say to start sometimes if you're struggling to feel it is we'll just start with something that's familiar. Start with a really good feeling you had. Think about the last time you made a really amazing play in football and like think about it and actually like feel how good it felt when you got a sack, you got that touchdown, you made that catch, you made that big hit. Feel how good it feels. Okay, now feel another one, right? And then, okay, now picture the next thing you want. So that way you're kind of priming their body to feel those things. So that way it's like, oh, right, it's right there. And that's already familiar. They already have that there. So it's easier to kind of slide into that next new thing with the feeling that you want.
Yeah, you're conditioning your body.
Yeah.
800,000 cells per second are reproducing inside of your body.
Wild, hey? I
And
didn't
they're
know that.
repro and they're reproducing at the same signature frequency that you're currently in, the state that you're in, how you think, how you feel.
Yeah.
I don't call it visualization. I call it feelingization.
Ooh, okay.
And so here's without going into the rabbit hole of like how I teach it. If you want to be confident,
Hmm.
you have to know exactly what confidence feels like first. It's
Hmm.
like the chicken or the egg conversation. What comes first, the confidence or the action? Well,
Yeah.
if it gives a shit what comes first, feel it and then
Yeah.
take action, test the pattern, come back and work on the pattern if it's not the what you want,
Hmm.
right? So whatever it is that you want to experience in your life, we live upside down. The whole world lives upside down. We
Hmm.
think once we have the thing, then we'll feel the way we want to feel.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's ass backwards.
Hmm.
And I won't go into the whole entire story of how I know that, but I know that. And so if we want love, we have to like
Be
self-love
it
and
first.
show love. We want to have a certain amount of money or be abundant. You have to feel abundant, and then the money
Mm.
shows up. It
Hmm.
should it's 100% every single time. If you can teach your body how to feel something, you're going to condition your body into that state, and then
Hmm.
your body will naturally live in that state more often, and
Hmm.
then you'll change what you expect to see. Therefore, you're changing what you're priming your
Yes.
brain to actually perceive. And if you didn't do this work, you might walk right past an opportunity to actually have the experience of life that you want because your brain is not primed to see it. But now
Yes.
it is.
Yes.
Now it is. So you're like, oh, it was a coincidence. No,
No. Yeah.
no, you conditioned your body to the experience, and
Yeah.
therefore you actually all possibilities exist. You are just as
Yeah.
you're selecting the possibility that you want to actually experience. And whatever that may be. People want to call it manifestation. I don't, whatever. It's
Yeah.
science.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's learning to shift your state. It's
Yeah.
legit. It's what it is. It's learning how to alter and interrupt patterns, alter your state, live from a future state, live from that place of the experience you want to have. And I tell people this story all the time. When I was coming out of very deep, deep, dark despair,
Hmm.
I used a method that I still teach to this day called glimpses of goodness.
Hmm.
And it's in the mental health world. That's how they help somebody come out of a very deep spot in their life. They get them to begin to notice just one little tiny glimpse of goodness. Somebody opened a
Hmm.
door for me today. I don't care
Yeah.
how small it is, how microscopic, can you notice it? Right?
Hmm.
And the
Hmm.
same thing, can you notice how you're growing or anything? These more microscopic, right? And
Yeah.
then the objective is, can we link two glimpses of goodness together?
Yeah.
And then can we link three together? Right? And
Yeah.
so legitimately, this is I learn these type of things and people learn them, but they don't integrate them into their life in a way that they actually see the results,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
so eventually it was like, oh, I linked enough together to have half of my day
Hmm.
be pretty good. And then it was and then it was a few days in a row. And then
Yeah.
it was a week or two. And then it was, right? Now my life is this glimpse of goodness, right?
Yeah.
So being able to do the same thing in any way, shape, or form to create whatever experience of life that you do want. So if you're in a content place, then begin to actually prime yourself to see the new paradigm, the new thing,
Hmm.
level of confidence. Have these little glimpses of moments that you
Yeah.
begin to put together that are confident, abundant, connected, joyful, fulfilled, purposeful, whatever the hell you want in life. Spend the time to actually record that in your body. And yes, you can have the image, it's fine for visualization. I don't really care about images personally. I care about emotions. Like I want to, because the reason why you want the goal is because you think
Mm.
it's going to make you feel a certain way.
Yes.
Why
Yes.
you want the national championship. It's why you want to lose the 20 pounds. It's why you want the job, you want the role, want the certain type of marriage. You want the thing, the car, whatever it is, you want the thing because you think it's going to make you feel a certain way. But you can go ahead and feel that way right freaking now.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
now, you're gonna, and then you can live your life in a way where either you get the thing or you don't get the thing. Like you don't need it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Again, a good example there I always give is that people always talk about relationships, wanting certain people. And I find one that hits home really well is like, for example, if you're somebody that wants a partner, like I want a partner that, let's say, loves football, loves fitness, loves dogs. Okay, well, do you love dogs? No. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. Do you love football? No, I don't love football. That doesn't make any sense. You have to become it first to then find that person that will align with you, right? And I think I found it in my wife now, which is amazing. But I think it's something that people forget, and I really like what you said there. It's like it's not the goal; it's who you become to get that goal. And I think of every time I've accomplished something that was like really cool, it was like, yeah, it's cool. How long does it last? How long does that feeling last? Most a day, maybe a week if you're lucky. But after, it's like, no, no, who did I become? Man, I was way stronger. I was way more dialed in. I had way more perseverance. I had more patience, and whatever it is. And sometimes it's a good exercise for people to look back and go like, right, you did accomplish something. Okay, tell me what you accomplished. Well, who did you become to accomplish that? And they're like, oh yeah, I guess I did this and I did this and I did this and I did this. And you're like, well, that's pretty cool. Maybe you think for the next goal, we have to, what else who do you have to become now for this next goal, right?
Yeah.
So I really like that, and I think we could keep diving on that for a while, but I want to change gears just a little bit because I've there's just a lot of topics I want to cover. I
Oh,
don't
yeah,
think we have
we go
time.
on for days, man. Go
I
on for
know I
days.
don't think we have time
Yeah.
for it all, but
Yeah.
I just saw one of your videos, and it really I was like, man, and really made me go like, this is going to be a good one. You're talking about what you can control, and
Mhm.
so maybe do you want to dive down just your theory on that and how you approach that because I say it's really easy to blame others,
Yeah.
right? But if you blame others, you feel good, or you can blame yourself and get better,
Yeah.
right? So how do you approach that and what's your modality there? And maybe just share on that topic a little bit.
I mean, it's sports psychology 101, man. Like control what
Mm,
you can't control.
yeah.
Everything out, eliminate anything that does not matter, right? Here's real simple. I'll keep it simple. Where your attention goes, energy flows. We've heard that before, right? So if our attention is going to all kinds of things we cannot control,
Mm,
whether it's in sports, business, relationship, whatever it may be, that we are wasting precious life force energy, first of
yeah.
all. Right? And we only have so many ampage wattages a day to actually put into our life. And so for
Yeah.
me, it's about being relentless of using this resource that we've been given every single day in the most
Mm,
intentional way possible to create the life that I desire. And I know that at any point in time, I'm focused on anything that I can't control. I'm being a victim.
yeah.
I'm being the victim of my own life and my own circumstances. And we all are on this scale somewhere between complete victim to the hero of our life. I call it a heroic mindset, right?
I like that.
And there's the book the Ted dynamic, power dynamic, and an incredible parable book that talks about the victim orientation versus creator. And
Hmm.
and so if you haven't read that book or audio, and fantastic audio listen, but we're all on this spectrum somewhere,
Hmm.
right? We're either a five and we don't even know it, but half of our life we feel like life is happening to me,
Hmm.
right? And so if you are a five, fine, no judgment. Like we talked about, no judgment. How do you get yourself to a six?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if you focus on things you can't control, if you blame
Mm,
others, if you judge, if you compare, if you do any of these things, if you complain, all of
hmm.
it, you are taking a step towards being more of a victim of your life, and you are releasing all of the energy and the
Hmm.
possibility for change. No one's ever changed their life or their circumstances by being a victim. Life is not what happens to you, it's
Yeah.
how you respond. And we hear
Yeah.
all these things, but are we willing to wake up and actually frame
Yeah.
ourselves and our mindset in a way that we actually engage with
Yes.
life from that perspective, right? So I mean, the goal is, yeah, but can we get to an 8 or above of being a hero in our life? Because we're still going to
Hmm.
have these moments where I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, flipped in. Damn
Yeah.
it. I was focused on something I couldn't control. Yeah, I felt like life was against me in that moment. And here's the reality is that the most fundamental level of, and this kind of brings it up. You talk about control and not control. The most fundamental component
Hmm.
of, in my opinion, of coaching, of
Hmm.
mental strength, mental mindset coaching, whatever type of coaching you do, is helping people to see how at one moment in time they were taking a life circumstance and they were making it against them. And
Yeah.
how can you help them to reframe that, to
Yeah.
learn the lesson, to receive the gift, to
Yeah.
become more resilient, stronger, more capable, expand their capacity, their confidence, whatever, to they can find a way to take that situation and make it life for them.
Yeah.
And I have a real quick story about
Yeah.
this. I saw one of your questions, and this story popped up in my mind that you sent to me before we started. So this kind of refers to that. I had a wrestler a guy who was a former wrestler. He's like 55 years old when I worked with him. This is 4 or 5 years ago.
Hmm.
And and the only thing we were talking about is that the mechanism of understanding how to let go and how to reframe in our lives and how to paradigm shift. Like it was just he wanted to understand that science. And so
Hmm.
he was somebody who was in apathy on the scale of states. If you're familiar with the scale of states, at the very bottom, 20 to 40 measurement of apathy, right? And so we were working his way up the scale of states into obviously courage and eventually willingness and acceptance.
Yeah.
And he was telling me this story that caused a belief that no matter how hard he tries, he
Mm.
can never win.
Mm.
Okay. So when he was young, he had the opportunity to go to an Iowa wrestling camp. And I don't know how long it was, 2 week long or something of the sorts, right? But whatever it was, let's just say it was 2 weeks. It was a long wrestling camp. And
Hmm.
we all know Iowa wrestling is like, it was even back then, it was like, the cream of the crop for wrestling camps, right?
Okay.
He said, I didn't just lose every single match that I participated in. And, they're wrestling probably 8 or 10, 12 matches a day. Hell, I don't know, a lot, right?
Hmm.
And he goes, I didn't just lose every single match I participated in. I got pinned every single day I was at this camp. And so I walked away from that camp realizing no matter how hard I try, I could
Mm.
never win. I said, that's
Mm.
one meaning you can place on that. That's one perception of that scenario you can place on it.
Yeah.
And that's being that happened to me and I'm a victim of my circumstances.
Yeah.
Versus I go, are you trying to tell me on day 13, you've been pinned for 12 days straight? And on day 13, you showed up on that mat again. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. I'm not sure I would have.
Yeah.
You
Takes
know,
resilience.
I said, you are the most resilient son of a bitch I've ever met. Right? And I said,
Yeah.
how about we place this meaning on it to construct our hero mindset, right?
Mm.
Be the hero of our life, to take life happening to me, to life happening for me. This
Hmm.
experience tells me that no matter what happens, you show up for yourself.
Yeah.
He should have seen the shift in his
Yeah.
overall demeanor, his posture, his
Yeah.
facial expression. And like legitimately from that moment forward, it was only a few weeks, maybe a month and a half more that we worked together. And the growth and the healing that he experienced and he went and pursued a dream of his and completely course corrected his life. And it was like, holy crap, right?
Wild.
It
Yeah.
was legitimately by taking something that felt like it was against me and making it for me. And
Yeah.
the only way to do that is fundamentally to start with the most basic component is what can I control? What is
Yeah.
out of my control? How people treat me, the weather, the refs, my parents, people, whatever. I'm talking about athletes,
Yeah.
obviously. My boss, my coworkers, all the things. Make a list, man. Make a list of all the things you cannot control. It's huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's everything. Politics, news, media, the
Yeah. Yeah.
past. Keep going, keep going, keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, and then realize, oh my goodness, how much of my attention and energy do I place on that? Like, give it a
Yeah.
percentage. Give it a
Yeah.
percentage. This is why I don't watch the news. This is why I don't
Yeah.
want. I very rarely scroll social media. So
Yeah.
I legitimately, I don't let anybody influence me who is not directly helping me to reach my goals, right?
Yes.
Then come over here and make your list of things you can control
Yeah.
and realize it's my
Short list.
attitude. A
Yeah.
very short list, man. It's my attitude. It's my effort. Yeah, I can control my posture. I can
Yeah.
control what my eyes are doing, what my breath is
Yeah.
doing. I can control my internal dialogue, how I treat people,
Yep.
right? My professionalism, how I prepare, my integrity, right?
Yep.
I mean, we can come up with some nuances there, but it's
But-
pretty dang simple. It's a short
Yep.
list, right?
Yep.
And yet you can kind of you end up realizing it's basically your attitude, your effort, your body language, posture, and
Yes.
spoken word. That's it. And when
Yep.
you relentlessly learn how to train yourself to not even allow yourself to focus on anything else, but
Yeah.
relentlessly focus on only what you can control, everything in life changes.
Yeah.
Everything in life changes. And then how you can perform changes because all of your energy comes back into yourself,
Yes.
into you.
Yes.
People don't change. They can't get across that river of change is because their energy is completely distorted.
Mm.
Get your
Yeah.
energy back. First, like this is why I talk, the first principle of transformation is awareness. Second one is to declutter.
Yeah.
Like stop giving away your damn energy.
Yeah. Yep.
Turn off the news, turn off the TV,
Put away the
right?
phone. Yeah.
Put away the phone,
Yeah.
eliminate the people who are negative. You
Yeah.
know, if they're your family, love them, but you don't
Yeah.
have to like them.
I would say turn them down, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
turn down the volume, man.
turn down the volume. Yeah, you know what? You're 100% right. And that's something I always coach and I always tell, so I coach a couple teams. So I coach the high school and I coach my kids. In U14 right now. And I always tell them it's just attitude and effort are the biggest things, guys. Like, what's your attitude? What's your effort? Because, two things I find there. And even if you don't get the result, you feel really good because it's like, man, I went all out and I felt great. I'm having fun. Yeah, we lost, but I'm still having fun. I'm having a good attitude. So yeah, I 100% agree with that method. And yeah, I'm gonna even add, like you said, your posture, like that kind of stuff. I think that's great. Touching on yeah, where you're putting that energy. I always say wherever you blame is where you're giving the power, right? So if it's, oh, my ex did it, or oh, the news, the government, whatever, it's like, well, there goes all your power.
Yep.
Right? And you said it perfectly. Well, no wonder you can't change, you got no energy because you're giving your power all away to everybody. It's like, oh man, that's a really, really great analogy. And I think what happens there, to dive into just a little bit, is like when you're putting all your focus on all these things, like you create this like prison for your mind, right? You create this like little box. You're like, well, I can't go out there because A, B, C, D, F, G, all these things you can't control. And so you create this prism where you're just like, well, I guess I'm just kind of stuck here doing this whatever thing. When you start taking that ownership, it sucks. I say it's a kind of shitty because you're like, oh man, I'm the one that put myself here. It's like, yeah, I put myself here. But now I can be the person to get myself out of here. One of the
Yep.
best things I've ever heard is like, there's nobody come to save you.
Mhm.
There's no knight on shining armor. There's nobody's coming to save you. Batman, Superman. No, you're the Superman. You're the Batman. You got to just realize that it's you, and you got to be willing to take that step and
That's
move.
that's my alter ego, my man, my Batman.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, man, face your fears, man. Like
Yeah.
sit with them. Yeah, you're afraid of bats, go sit in the cave, man. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally. I think that's great. And I always say, and it's something that really helped me move past my own fears and doing the podcast and just starting these like little things, starting another construction type business, and it's like fear is a mile wide, but it's only an inch deep.
mm,
Right. And it really sat with me. And I think that was Ed Milet that said that. And it really, I really had to think about it for a bit. And I was like, what does he mean? And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. Like, because when you look out at it, it's this monster. It's huge. It's this massive lake that you're like, oh my God, I can't cross that. Then you're like, oh, you step into, you're like, oh,
yeah,
well, it
yeah.
wasn't that bad. Now I kind of feel
Mark,
stupid for waiting.
Mark Divine calls fear false evidence appearing real
Yeah.
or false expectations appearing real. Either one. Yeah. Yeah. Fear is an illusion. Failure is an illusion. It's all just your mind and your brain trying to conserve energy, keep you safe, keep you from being rejected, right? Your
Hmm.
brain is this organ that's trying to keep you alive, and it's damn good at it because look, you're still here. So
Yeah.
thank you, brain.
Yep.
But if I want something new or different, I have to learn how to override the system, man.
Totally. It's
I gotta learn to override it.
yeah, and like I said, you're addressing those behaviors, you're looking for change, and I think one thing we talked about and we kind of brushed on a little bit there was looking at who you spend time with. And I would say that's your most valuable resource. People talk about money and whatever. It's I know it's your time and your attention.
Mm.
Like truly your attention. It's like wherever you're putting that, that's what your brain is saying is important, or that's what you're telling your subconscious is important. And wherever you're spending your time with. So if you're scroll holing for hours, looking at stuff you shouldn't be on the news every morning, every night, around people that are negative, even people that you said that you love, that are family and friends, it's like, well, that's great, but I don't necessarily have to listen to everything they're saying. I can turn down the volume a little bit. But I think that's probably the next step, I would say, in any of these changes. Try to be around people. Maybe you can't physically be around people that you feel like could help, but there's things like Ryan Sawyer, who's got a pretty good Instagram page. You can find some good stuff. If you're going to go on Instagram, like find something that's actually
Yeah,
helpful that you can learn from.
curate your feed, man. Curate your feed.
Yeah, yeah. My wife says all the time, curate it. If you're
I,
going to do it, limit it and then just curate it and try to find people, inundate yourself, people that
yeah,
believe the things you want to believe or that are becoming who you or that who are who you want to become,
yeah.
whether they're in person or not. But you have to start moving away from that old life because you are influenced by the 5 to 7 close people around you.
You
That's
know
why
that
teams do so well.
there was a Harvard study done that there was a 99% factor, number one influence over whether or not you reach your goals is your circle of influence.
Ooh. Do you want to say that one more time? That was a good
Yeah, I don't know if I'll say it the same way twice, but
one.
Harvard study,
Yeah.
99% factor, the number one influence over not whether or not you reach your goals is your circle of influence.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you know, and I think people need to really, again, because we go all night about this stuff, but I think to really, think of that next step. And we talked about awareness being the objective observer, but do that and then look at like exactly that. Who you spend your time with. It makes a big difference because if they're stuck on problems, well, then now monkey see, monkey do. Eventually, you're going to take on those problems, even though they're not even your problems. I see this time and time again in my own life. I'll spend time with somebody, and pretty soon I'm talking like them. When I'm standing like them, I'm like, wait, I don't want to talk like them or stand like them. And they're mirror neurons. There's a whole bunch of factors
Oh,
to it.
yeah.
We've been doing this for, our body's been doing this for tens of thousands of years. So we're fighting biology, you're fighting all these things, but it comes back to awareness and recognizing that these people have an effect. So
Yep.
who you spend your time with matters and really start trying to be careful on what that is because that sinks into your subconscious programming. Because pretty soon you'll start standing like them and walking like them and talking like them and doing what they do.
Yep. Yeah. No, yeah. I think you go for me. I'm a little bit one way. You know what I mean? I'm a little bit much on one end of the spectrum, but like
Yeah.
when you've experienced what I've experienced for 20 plus years, and the roller coaster, like I become unapologetic, man.
Yeah.
Unapologetic. Like I don't use the word careful.
Mm.
Like I talk about be relentless
Yeah.
with how you curate your feed, with who you spend time with, who you pursue, who
Yeah.
you be like, what, the movies you watch, the lyrics
Yes.
you listen to, the music you listen to.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, yeah. Like, if you willy-nilly
Yeah.
life that you want to create, your life becomes just that. If
Yeah.
you let random shit in,
Yeah.
you put random ingredients into a meal, you get random meal.
Yeah. Random flavors and it's not going to be
Yeah,
very
man. No,
good.
no, no. You want a
It's a good
world-class
point.
life. You want a world-class meal. You got to use world-class ingredients, man.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. And I love a lot of people in my life.
Hmm.
There's a lot of people who I do not associate with anymore. And it's not because I don't love you,
Hmm.
because you're not going where I'm going. And
Yeah.
I'll look out for you. You call me, I'll be there. Like I'll
Yeah.
check in on you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm not gonna expose my mirror neurons to you.
Yeah. Totally.
Unless you are somebody who legitimately is in that circle of people who challenge me, lift me up, make me
Yeah.
better, right? And in one realm or the other. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be perfect in all the realms, but like, man,
Hmm.
you're the type of father I want to be,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
type of husband I want to be,
Yeah.
right? Just,
Relationship.
yeah,
Yeah.
you take your life and break it up into categories.
Yeah.
Take your life and break it up into categories. What kind of father I want to be? What kind of husband do I want to be? What kind of servant leader do I want to be? What kind of, impact do I want to make? Cool. And then go find these people that are living their life in some way, shape, or form. And don't idolize them
Mm.
because they're not perfect either. It's just take what works from them and the model of what they're doing, how they're living, how they hold themselves, carry themselves, start their day, finish their day, the practices, the habits, all the things, and start to just
Yeah.
incrementally include them into your life in a way and let it take time, let the process unfold, right? You know what I mean? But that piece is going back to like your first question of the lowest hanging fruit.
Mm.
I would tell people that when they first created this idea of growth mindset,
Mm.
right? And the idea of growth mindset in neuroscience, it was actually called incremental theory.
Hmm.
Incremental theory didn't sound real sexy for the public, so they changed it to
No.
growth mindset, right?
Yeah.
Me personally, as a guy who's a geek of science and the science of transformation and change, I love incremental theory because that's why we talk about incremental shifts.
Mm.
We don't do New Year's resolutions. I don't, you
Yeah. Yeah.
can't start going to the CrossFit gym 6 days a week if you haven't been in 3 years. No, 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 no.
Yeah.
Like, go for a 15-minute walk.
Yeah.
Incremental theory means incremental shifts. Truly, the principle, and we've all heard it, be 1% better every day. Like,
Mm.
live that.
Yeah.
Live that. And watch what happens in 90 days.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. I 100% agree. And not to go back too far, but you mentioned, something that you mentioned, be relentless, being with who you spend time with, what you're watching on TV, your music. And that's something me and my wife have been noticing recently. It's like, right, I love hip hop. I grew up listening to it. Then I started listening to like, what songs am I singing during the day when I'm just doing mundane tasks? Oh, it's lyrics that I don't really want to be singing out loud or singing in my head over and over and over again. And so it seems little, but it all adds up. It's a compound effect, right? I'm either doing something that's helping me or I'm doing something that's not helping me. And so that was just one more thing that I was like, oh yeah, that's a really good point you mentioned that those little things matter. So again, we could keep going all night here because this has been great. I have a couple questions for you before you wrap up your,
yeah.
the show is called the Emotional Fitness Podcast. What does emotional fitness mean to you?
Mm. Emotional fitness. I love that. So, being able to feel
Mm.
fully to
Oh,
completion, being able to feel fully to completion.
yeah.
David Hawkins in the book of Letting Go, and he talks about mapping consciousness and other books and different things, is if a feeling is fully felt and not resisted, every emotion or feeling can be fully felt in 90 seconds, even the deepest forms of grief.
Mm,
So allowing yourself to truly experience life fully, letting life pass right through you. That's how
mm,
you make life happening for you, is that you do not resist life.
yeah.
Life is unfolding in front of you and you're experiencing it and it's your moment that you're experiencing. So emotional fitness, if I was emotionally fit, that would mean that I can fully feel
Mm,
everything, and not let it imprint my mind in a negative way, but just feel it
mm,
fully. So that's, and even you'd be amazed. The place that I first learned the power of compassion
mm,
was from a former Navy SEAL commander, Mark
mm,
Divine, and he trains Navy SEAL ops and or Navy SEAL candidates, and had a 20-year career and is an incredible world-centric warrior. And one of the main things he talks about is the superpower of compassion. And
mm,
so letting yourself actually feel whatever it is you're feeling. You're feeling frustrated. It's okay to be frustrated, to be sad, to be angry, these things. But it's when we engage with them in a way that is destructive is the problem.
mm,
So emotion is it's kind of like people not understanding what stoic to be stoic means. Someone who's stoic or stoicism doesn't mean you don't feel. It means that you actually feel fully,
Hmm.
but you're not imprisoned by the emotions or the feelings. You don't get attached or
Right.
identified to them. So
Yeah.
therefore, you don't respond to them in an unhealthy and in a
Yeah.
sporadic way. A Stoic feels it all. They
Yeah.
feel the fear. People think, oh, you got to overcome fear and with courage. No, no, no. You just got to be able to get better at feeling fear,
Hmm.
right? And now you no longer judge fear. You no longer judge, doubt and what all these things that pop up. You just feel them. Go, oh, look at that,
Yeah.
right? And that's the observer component, the objective awareness component. So that without going further, I could keep going, but yeah, that's to me, that's what to be emotionally fit is to not necessarily even try to guide or direct emotions. Emotions are just energy, energy, emotion, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're just stress, and they're just stress. And so good. If I'm feeling something, it's stress that's leaving my body. So
Hmm.
good. I'm de-stressing my nervous system. And when I
Yeah.
de-stress my nervous system, I'm going to become healthier and closer to
Hmm.
God.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
good. So I'm feeling something good. I'm
Yeah.
experiencing life. I know I'm alive. I
Yeah.
athletes this all the time. Like, what do I do with my nerves? Feel them.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you stop getting nervous before you step onto whatever court of life that you're walking into, stop stepping onto that court. The moment
Yeah.
I knew that it was time for me to walk away from college coaching was the day that I didn't get nervous to step on the practice field. I got nervous
Hmm.
every single day of my coaching career stepping onto the field for practice.
Yeah.
The day that I walked out, I realized, oh, I don't care enough to get nervous anymore. It's time to leave.
Yeah.
It's time to leave and go find something that makes me feel that way again.
Yeah.
Because yeah, nerves are neutral.
Hmm.
Nerves are neutral. We then label them good nor bad, and that's how they turn into performance anxiety.
Yeah.
Nerves are neutral, or we can transmute an emotion like anxiety into excitement when we start to recognize that nerves are neutral. Feel them.
Hmm.
Good. They're getting your attention. They're inviting you into the moment,
Hmm.
right? Like you need them to be at your best. You can't tap into flow states
Yeah.
or to be in the zone without nerves.
Yeah.
So why are we judging them? So
Yeah.
feel fully.
I absolutely love that. And there's yeah, you know what, you really hit the nail on the head there. And I think that's what people need to hear more right now than ever. It reminds me of a quick story of my son last week. He's been playing football for 3 years, and this is his fourth year now, and he also wants to play quarterback. I'm like, okay. And we're just doing indoor flag football right now. He's been doing really good. And then the first few weeks in the 1 week before, it was just a bad day. Everything wasn't working well, and we did terrible. We won all of our games up until then, and we just like did terrible. And then he came home and he was just like raging mad. I was like, "Hey, like what's going on?" He's like, "I'm just so angry at the fact that they lost and that like they got and they played terribly." And it made me think of what you were just mentioning now. Is like just to feel it. And so you could see if he was like feeling it. And I was like, hey, well, like, what do you want to do about it? And he like went to the gym and did the like crazy workout. And then the next day we wrote down all of his goals and what he wants to accomplish and why and like all this sort of stuff and how he's going to do that. And it made me realize and you saying that came to mind is because like, right, he had to fully feel that. If he just brushed it off, it wouldn't have motivated him. I've been there multiple times too, where I got so frustrated. That's when I first learned to hit in football. I was like, oh, I got so frustrated getting put on my butt every time. Then I finally went all out, and I was like, oh my God, it worked. Look at that. So yeah, I think that's a great lesson for so many things, not just sports, but even just life is fully feel it. I would 100% agree with you. Is there any I mean, that was a great message, really,
Yeah.
in on itself. Is there any other little messages or anything that you want to say before we wrap this up?
Oh, I don't know, man. I think that's a pretty good one to end on, man. Like I think for whatever this is worth, this is what I'm being prompted to say is I, I know in life we have a worthiness issue.
Hmm.
And just if you're listening to this, right, like for whatever reason, you know, a moment of just hearing that you don't need to do anything to be worthy. You don't need to achieve to be worthy. You can believe in yourself without the actual attainment of the goal. Like
Mm,
start with the belief, start with the confidence, start with the worthiness. This
Yeah.
is what our motto is this idea of heart first. That's what my shirt is,
Oh,
heart
okay. Yeah.
first. That's what this is we want people to come from being into doing.
Mm,
Reverse the model in life where we are all living, you're living from the outside in, meaning that we
hmm
need the world to be a certain way for us to be okay. When in all reality, if you just slow down, pause, interrupt the pattern, you're going to find out that you're okay inside. That there's a
Yeah.
part of you inside of you, we call it your center, that doesn't fear, that doesn't doubt, that's all
Mm,
knowing, right? And that part of you is completely worthy and it's
mm,
unconditional,
yeah.
but you have to look for it.
Yeah.
And then when you become aware of it, you can actually operate from it in a way where then now your success, your abundance, your joy, connection, love, whatever becomes so much more enjoyable. Life as you're
Mm,
feeling, come back to that same point. Like wow, you're really experiencing something because you don't need it to be a certain way for you to be okay. So,
yeah.
just live, explore this idea or concept of being able to live from the inside out. You don't need anything to be okay. If you just pause and recognize right now, here in the present moment, uh,
Mm,
I'm okay. I'm worthy, right? And
yeah.
that causes resistance. Good. That's
Mm,
resistance is necessary for a paradigm shift.
yeah.
Without resistance, like when I coach people, come on, bring me your resistance because that's
Mm.
what's needed for us to actually shift your paradigm. And so, yeah, man, love the process. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate this. It's been a great conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, Ryan, thank you so much. I feel like we need to pick up this up again later because there's just like I like wrote down like four more things like oh we hit on that we hit
we,
on that but
we can we
that's
can we can do round two. Ding
yeah,
ding.
yeah, we definitely will. But thank you so much. This has been amazing. Even just that last bit there was like, yeah, I appreciate that, and I definitely felt that. Um, how can people find you if they want to reach out? I mean, yeah, what's the best way to reach out to you, and where can they follow you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram mainly. Mental strength coach, mental dot strength coach on Instagram. And that's probably the best way to go. Just follow me on there, message me on there, and we have a team of coaches doing this. So it's, we're just trying to impact people. We specialize in one-on-one coaching is the thing that we love to do the most because we're
Cool.
here to make depth of impact, not width.
Yeah,
So we truly love to be supporting people wherever they are and creating these paradigm shifts, man. So
I love it. Again, thank you so much. And yeah, I definitely will be sending people your way. I appreciate that.
appreciate it. Thanks, David.
So thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to do that. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. Please share because that's what helps this podcast grow and be able to reach more people. And why wouldn't you want to share something like that with somebody if you really enjoyed it? If you haven't yet, I would also encourage you to go to lifepurposely.ca. My wonderful wife, Emily, sends out weekly content to help you improve your life and to think differently and to make wonderful changes that can impact your life forever. So thank you again for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode.